guys, it's Gavin here from the Pro Commerce Broker Academy. And today I really wanted to do something very different. I wanted to give you the facts and the reasons that this crash will end all credit-based lending overnight. It's a long video full of facts, but MCAs, business lines of credit, all of that stuff, gone. My opinion is a lot of brokers out there and a lot of folk that are on YouTube right now researching this industry are unaware of what is actually coming. And if they aren't prepared, it's going to be devastating to a lot of people. A broker not diversified is going to find it very difficult to survive the coming storm. Any individual looking to start this profession and perhaps even invest in a program to help them learn is going to fail hard if that program that they join only offers them training on those credit-based products like MCA as an example. We are going to witness the clearing out of the industry because, in my humble opinion, what is coming is not a recession or even a depression, guys. It is the catastrophic failure of the financial system. The end. No one alive now has lived through what we're about to go through. And I know that's a massive claim. And guys, look, I get it. What I'm saying here is actually controversial, right? And I understand there are going to be people out with different opinions. That's okay. You know, it's all cool for me. But before you judge me or this video, what I thought I would do here is just lay it all out, you know, from the foundation up to show you why I believe this is inevitable and why it is already playing out right in front of our faces. To do that, I really first need to show you the truth of our global financial system and how it really works. Before I do that, I really want to stress something else here, guys. If you take all of this stuff on board and you accept that it is coming, it doesn't mean that it's the end for you. I'm not talking about Armageddon here. Those that plan for it, those that are aware are going to be able to make money as we go through it. Those aware have nothing to fear at all. I'm actually quite excited about what's coming. The question is, after watching this video, are you going to be part of that 1% who know and who are prepared, or are you going to be part of the 99% who choose to be ignorant? I know where I stand. And I know where the folks in our community training with us also stand. Watch this and then decide for yourself, guys, because I'm literally about to share one of the single biggest secrets in the history of the world. And I know that is a massive claim, I get it. But it's a secret that's actually affected every single living being on this planet. And maybe you've always felt deep down, I know I actually did this, it's kind of what compelled me in the end to go dig into this stuff. You felt there's maybe something wrong with the world economy. You know, watching all these experts make it sound oh so complicated. Maybe like me, you could never really put your finger on, you know, what was actually the problem here. But it just didn't add up. Things did not make sense. For me, at least, that's what forced me to do some digging. And what I found, it blew my mind, guys. It absolutely blew. It changed everything for me. And I want to share that information with you. Excuse me. But let's just get some facts straight. I'm 45 right now, shooting this video. Gone are the days when a family of 4 can survive on just one paycheck. That was my dad's generation. Every year that goes by, it just seems that that American dream just gets that little bit further out of reach, right? Just surviving just gets harder and harder as everything just gets more and more expensive. But why is that? Why does everything get more and more expensive? Well, this is what I want to show you in this video. I want to show you the system, the financial system that is ultimately the reason that we have so much inequality in the world today. It isn't our fault. It's the system of the elites of this world, the ones pulling the strings that profit from the very same system. And these elites would have you believe that it's all so super complicated and you've got to be highly educated individuals to even understand it. It's absolute BS. It's the entire reason that American dream has got further and further away. And it's the entire reason that this system is going to end. Because what we've been living in is a Ponzi scheme and a scam. And all I really want to show you guys is the truth of that, because that will dovetail perfectly into why it's coming to an end. And you can go and research this stuff for yourself too, okay? Exactly what I've spent a lot of time and hours, believe me, over the years getting into this stuff, and it's just absolutely changed my whole perception of everything. But I want to bring that into this because we're running businesses, we're loan brokers, and we want to make sure that we can ride the coming storm and profit from that, okay? So with that said, guys, enjoy what I'm about to share. Please ask any questions if you've got any. And if you have a difference of opinion, that's also cool too. I'm open to debate. I'm not putting this out there to just doom monger everybody. I'm putting this out there so I hope that I can educate those that it resonates with. And for those that it resonates with, Let's go make sure we win big, guys. I'll see you
really
on the next
dig into this stuff now, and I'm going to show you the truth of the financial system and how that dovetails perfectly into this coming crash, and actually is the cause of this coming crash. I'm going to be sharing a lot of information that may well be the first time that you've seen it. If you're anything like I was when I first discovered this stuff, it's going to be a little bit mind-blowing, and you might want to take a little bit of time just to digest everything. Please know that I've spent a lot of time researching all of this. When I found out the truth of it, I couldn't stop. I was possessed. I really needed to uncover all of it. And if there are any of you watching this to the end that want any more information, I'm more than happy to share it, because it does go even deeper than what I'm going to show you right now. What I'm going to show you right now is really the basic workings of the financial system. You can corroborate every single piece of information that I'm about to share with you right now. The other thing I'd like to say is that I haven't been able to spend a lot of time doing some fancy slides with graphics and everything else. So it's really just about me narrating and giving you some key pieces of text on the slides. So if you have more questions after watching, please do reach out to me. I'm happy to share more. I do feel more and more people need to know this stuff and really understand what's about to come, because the people in the media, the people that we normally would listen to, really aren't telling the truth, and that's really what's compelled me to share this information with you today. So let's get into it. So currency, this is a fact, guys. Currency can only be created by the government or by us. Now please notice something here. I have not said money. For money to be money, it has to be backed by an asset. No currency in use today globally, including the United States dollar, is money. But I want to keep this on topic. I can share another video where I can explain and actually prove why currency is not money. It has to be asset backed, and what we use today is definitely not asset backed. We essentially create currency in the form of a credit agreement. In fact, over 90% of the world's currency is created by us when we sign a credit agreement, whether that be for a loan, a mortgage, a car. It really doesn't matter what it is, guys. But at the end of the day, most people on this planet have to use credit, which means that currency is only ever created in debt. But for now, I'm going to focus on what the government does to create currency. This is the stuff that's going to be mind-bending, guys. Every government in the world doesn't create money. They create currency in the form of a glorified IOU. That's it, a glorified IOU. And I'm going to break this down and explain how this works. When it comes to governments creating these IOUs, it always starts with the politicians. Come election time, either side generally promises to give us, or give the people, I should say, more free stuff. You might have noticed this every election cycle, right? They're always promising what they're going to give to make our lives better, because during each previous administration, things have generally got worse, right? And really, as far as we know, and as has been proven again and again, nothing in this world is for free. So to provide that supposedly free stuff, the country essentially votes for the politicians to spend more than its income. And that's more commonly known as deficit spending. You may have heard of that before. So to pay for that deficit spending, the Treasury borrows currency by issuing a bond. Now, what is a bond? A bond is actually nothing more than a glorified IOU. It's a very official looking piece of paper with a bunch of numbers on it that essentially says, you'll owe me $1 billion or $1 trillion, and I promise over the next 10 or so years, I'm going to pay that back plus interest. But what we need to understand here, folks, is something simple. Treasury bonds are the nation's debt, and that only keeps going up. In fact, a few days prior to me shooting this video, Congress approved yet another hike in the debt ceiling by another 2.5 trillion. Had they not have done that, the US corporation would have defaulted for the first time ever. Now notice I said the US corporation. That's another big rabbit hole to go down, but it is the truth. The US corporation would have defaulted for the first time ever. Now ask yourself something. In any normal situation, if anybody has maxed out their credit and couldn't even afford to pay that credit back, would the solution be just to up the credit limits? We all know that that's a recipe for disaster, but that is exactly what is going on, and we only need to just join the dots and roll that out to understand at some point That cannot be kicked any further. So let's dig in further on this, guys. Bonds are IOUs, and these IOUs make up the national debt. That is a fact. But who pays the bonds back? Well, we do, of course, and our descendants through each generation via taxation. Notice another thing here. Every generation, your taxes always seem to go up, don't they? So really, when the government issues a bond or an IOU, what is it that is really going on here? Is that they are stealing prosperity from the future generations so that they can spend it today. Hence, things always get worse and that American dream always gets further and further away. This is why the can is always kicked down the road by each generation of new politicians coming through that cycle. Once that bond is issued, the Treasury then holds a bond auction, and then the world's largest banks, all of them, compete to buy a slice of the United States national debt so they can make a profit on it by earning interest. And as I explain more in this process, you will see that the big banks are always there taking a cut every single step of the way. And this is not by chance, guys. This is all part of the scam that I'm about to reveal to you. Once the banks purchase that debt through something called open market operations, or basically what is a shell game, the banks sell some of those bonds to the Federal Reserve. I want to make a quick side note here. Again, this is all fact. You can research this for yourself. And this is really going to need another video, but the Fed is not part of the United States. It sits on land that isn't part of the United States. It is a privately owned corporation, and it is owned by some very powerful families. And that's another part of the scam, but not relevant to this. So I want to just kind of get back to the point of why this crash is inevitable and how big it's actually going to be. So the banks that have bid in the auction then sell some of those bonds to the Fed at a profit, and to pay for those bonds, the Fed essentially writes a cheque that in theory should bounce, because these checks are drawn on an account that always has a zero balance. Always has a zero balance. To use a quote from the Boston Fed Reserve, "When you or I write a cheque, there must be sufficient funds in our account to cover that cheque. But when the Fed writes a cheque, there is no bank deposit on which that cheque is ran. Then when the Fed Reserve writes a cheque, it is essentially creating money or currency. It is at this point those cheques are handed to the banks, and voila, currency is miraculously created." Now, quick side note here, guys. Obviously, cheques are not so much in use these days. It's essentially digits on the screen. But I wanted to explain it by way of a cheque because it was just easier to do it that way. So what happens next is actually mind-blowing, because with that currency having been created essentially out of thin air, the banks then take that and they buy more government bonds with it. If any one of us was doing this, we would end up in jail. Okay, but let's carry on. This is how the system works. What is a cheque then? Well, it's essentially another IOU. And it's important that we understand this entire process, because all of it has a devastating effect on us and the way that we live. And it's the entire reason that this system is coming to a crashing end. So let's just recap here quickly. I want to recap what happens. Step 1. The Treasury issues bonds or IOUs. Step 2. The banks buy those IOUs with currency created out of thin air. The Fed then writes IOUs or cheques, or in a digital form these days, in exchange for the Treasury IOUs or the bonds. So what's really happening here is the Fed and the Treasury are just swapping IOUs to the banks, who act as the middlemen. And hey presto, all of this currency is magically created. And this process, guys, it repeats over and over again, 24/7, day in, day out, year after year, enriching the banks and the elites who control all of this, all whilst the public, you and me, are further and further indebted by raising the national debt that they create using that very process. Do you see how this scam works, guys? My head was blown. The end result of this is there is a build-up of bonds at the Fed and currency at the Treasury. This process is also where paper currency or coins come in, and more of that, obviously, these days is simply digits on a screen. So combine that with the fact that we create most of it when we sign a credit agreement, and there you have our entire monetary system. It's one big giant Ponzi scheme built on an ever-growing foundation of debt, using nothing but IOUs and fake money with zero value, because it has zero store of value and is backed by nothing more than the price of oil. So every time currency is created, guys, whether that be by us or the establishment, is essentially created in debt. All of it across the entire world. So let's quickly get back to the beginning and the politicians. Where does the government actually come into all of this? Well, with that currency, the Treasury simply deposits the newly created currency into various branches of government, and the politicians obviously spend it, often wasted spend on stuff that we don't need, or obviously programs that are just political that don't actually work. But you know what the single biggest expense is? And I'm not going to get into politics here, it's just simple fact: war and the sustaining of those wars. But let's get back, okay, because I want to go basically a lot deeper on this, a lot further, because I really want to help you guys understand what the coming crash signifies and why this is going to be like nothing that we have ever experienced before. It is not a recession and it is not a depression. And I'm not saying any of this stuff to scare you, because I want to educate you, to show you that you have a massive, massive opportunity here to make wealth while everybody else is going to be in a panic. The alternative lending industry is going to change, but it is not going to end. Remember what I say about assets and asset-backed lending. It's the same thing with cash, right? It's not asset-backed. But let's dig in further. So, the government now has a big pile of newly created currency, and they will obviously also going to be using this to pay people, their employees, the various numbers of contractors, all of these external businesses that make this whole economy up. Essentially people that get paid and that in turn deposit that currency with their bank. And this is where it gets to become an even bigger shocker, guys. When you deposit your currency with the bank, you are not depositing that into an account that is held in trust for you. Now, you may already have known that. I personally didn't. I always thought that if I'm putting my money in my bank, that's where it's sitting. But it doesn't work that way. What's really happening here is that you are loaning the bank your currency that you think is secure because you see some digits on the screen. But what is it they actually really do? Well, first they take a punt on the stock markets with your cash. But the bigger thing that they do is they loan it out to others who also want those loans, and they loan it at a profit. And this is really where the scam gets cranking, guys. This is where the banks multiply the numbers by doing something called fractional reserve lending. There's a lot of information out there on this. Fractional reserve lending is where the banks reserve a small percentage of your currency and loan the rest of it out. So as an example, you might deposit, say, $100 into your bank. Your bank can legally take $90 of it and loan it out without even telling you, so that they can make a profit on it while charging you charges to use the very bank account that you think is kept secure with the money that you think you put in it. They keep 10% back in the event that you might need some of it. But why then does your bank show $100 when the bank stole 90 of it to lend out at a profit? Well, the bank left another IOU, and this is more commonly known as a bank credit. Everyone has heard of the bank credit because we're all in credit with the bank, right? Now notice something here. Your statements will always say that you're in credit or you're in debit. Remember the '08 crash and the banks going under and some having to be bailed out, and there was all this panic because if they didn't bail the banks out? Well, now you know why. And if you don't believe this, here's what the Fed actually says. Commercial banks create checkbook money whenever they grant a loan, simply by adding a new deposit of dollars in accounts on their books in exchange for a borrower IOU. All we ever see are numbers on the screens, but think this through, guys. The bank loaned out $90 of your money for profit, and whomever they loaned it to is now making repayments. Remember the word repayments, because I want to make a quick side note here. There's another video really that I should do to dig into this if you guys want to understand it, but repayments. The clue is in the word. If we have a loan and we are repaying, what are we actually repaying? Shouldn't we just be paying the loan back? Repaying would indicate that we are repaying something that has already been paid, and that is the absolute truth. Remember, we create most of the currency in circulation. The bottom line here is that when we sign that credit agreement, it's us who creates the currency. The loan we take out is paid in full with our signature, and then we repay it. That's why everything in this system is a trust. That's another topic entirely. So let's get back to this. The bank loaned out $90 of your money for profit, and whoever they loaned it to is now making repayments. Well, now the bank is showing more currency on its accounts as more is being paid in than was lent of your money without your permission in the first place. How are you feeling about this right now? Because when I found this out, I was fuming. But let's go further, because this is important to understand when we consider the coming crash and why all credit-based lending will have to cease overnight. When somebody takes out a loan, they are going to buy something, right? A house, a car, whatever it is they're going to buy. So the borrower takes that $90 the bank has loaned them from your account without your permission, and they go and buy whatever it is they go to buy. But then the seller of what was bought takes that $90 and deposits that in his bank, and that bank then lends out 90% of that. And so the merry-go-round continues and continues. And think about it, guys. That initial deposit of $100 can create up to $1,000 of bank credit, $1,000 of bank credit, all of which is backed by the original $100 of currency. You understand why when this crash, it's like a big domino effect taking place. And that, guys, is on the basis that the banks only held 10% in reserve. They don't. It varies wildly, and it is often way less than 10%. Greed rules the system, right? So it's the banks that massively expand the supply of currency by lending our currency for a profit, all while charging us the bank fees for the privilege. So what this basically means, I've just said before, 90% of the currency in circulation globally, doesn't even have to be USD here, is created by the banks, or more specifically us. So I'm hoping you're still with me here, and I've dropped a few bombshells, and you're probably trying to process what I'm saying. So please go back and listen to this again, because it's all absolutely true. But if you're still with me, good, because now we need to go even deeper here, because by the time you reach the end of this video, there will be no more smoke and mirrors for you. You're going to see the reality for what it is. And you will know exactly why this system is ending, and exactly why you need to diversify your brokerage now, and why you need to be joining a program that does more than just teach credit-based funding products. It's surface level crap, guys. There's bigger stuff going on right now, and now is the time to get prepared for it. So let's carry on. What happens when we have an ever increasing supply of currency is that can only be created in a foundation of debt? Well, the more currency we have, the more the prices have to rise. You're living this now. How much have things gone up since you were a child? Have you ever noticed how each year, every generation, things just get more and more expensive? And the clever folks out there will just tell us because, well, that's just the rising cost of living. It isn't, guys. It's a lie. It's everything to do with this Ponzi scheme that we call the financial system. The more currency there is, the more prices have to rise, and the less value there is in the currency itself. I'm going to say that again. The more currency there is in circulation, the more prices have to rise, because the less value there is in the currency itself. Creating more of something can only devalue it, because this is where inflation comes from. And I've said this before in other videos. I've mentioned it on actually the last two crash videos I've talked about. In simple terms, inflation is just currency debasement, and it's caused directly by the ever-expanding currency supply. So just remember, I made a note last week. The government basically kicked the debt ceiling by another 2.5 trillion. 2.5 trillion. If you actually spent time and looked into how often that's being done, you're going to notice something in the last 10 years from the last '08 crash. Okay, what is coming has always been coming, and all they've done since the last one is kick the can for this very moment. So hopefully you're now seeing why this crash is actually coming. So let's understand something here. Our entire currency supply is nothing but $100, as an example, created in this Ponzi scheme scam we call the financial system, where the Fed and the Treasury swap glorified IOUs for a bunch of digits on the screen that the banks just type into their computer systems, and that is it. And to expand that globally, it's all the same. Nothing but a supply of numbers on a screen that devalue daily. Zero value, guys, other than that we perceive it to have. So I'm going to ask you a question, bearing in mind there's a crash coming. What happens when we realize there's no value in the dollar? And it doesn't end there. Our currency is obviously taxed, right? We work, we get paid, we have to pay our taxes. And it's taxed because we work for some of that currency supply. And I've also said this on other videos. Our true wealth is our time. It's the most valued commodity we own, yet most of us trade it away happily for jobs that pay us month to month so that we can pay our bills and our loans, whatever they might be. Okay. Now, guys, I mean, this did mean that really has to pee you off right now, right? We are often working a 9 to 5, exchanging time for money to pay bills and be taxed so that we can simply just live month to month. Not thrive, but just live. And it's all because of this Ponzi scheme, all for a bunch of worthless numbers on a screen. This is why you have to make a break from the 9 to 5 and do something for yourself, because the system will just crush you if you're not aware of what that system is doing. You are better than what you are doing right now. Make the break. Now is the time to do it. All of that currency is a direct representation of your blood, your sweat and your tears, which means, as I was saying, we are what gives currency its value. We do. So I want you to let that sink in for one moment. It's a scam. It's a privately owned monetary system that was always going to fail, and fail it is.
So, how's the head, guys? When I first learnt the truth, it blew my mind. And I actually spent years afterwards researching this stuff and just connecting different dots. It became an obsession. And I think it's really important that we join the dots to really understand what this coming crash signifies. The media and the talking heads out there, they're all lying. We all work very hard so we can save some of that worthless currency, essentially, to pay our taxes. You know, the IRS in the US, who then turn it over to the Treasury so they can pay the principal plus the interest on that bond the Fed bought with their own IOU drawn on an account that has nothing in it. It's mind-bending, isn't it? But it's exactly how it all works. Now, I could go on, because if you think that was bad, it gets far, far worse. But I really want to keep this on topic for the crash. Hopefully by now, you understand the entire Ponzi scheme for what it actually is. This fiat system has been in play for a long time, decades. And ever since they brought it in, it was destined to fail. Each time currency is created, it devalues. Fact. Which means there will inevitably be a point where the wheels will have to fall off. And we are at that point, guys. The can literally be kicked no more. And so there has to be this crash. And it's got to be engineered so that the new system, the new financial system, can be established, and all that liquidity that is fast drying up in this system, it has to go somewhere. You can't have a new one without the end of the old. And if we circle this right the way back to the point that I wanted to make, all credit-based products will have to end overnight, because none of these loans are going to be paid back. It will be devastating for many, and that, to be frank, pisses me off, because none of us out there deserve this. Those lending will only do so against an asset. One of the most common assets is real estate. That's the game we're in. The bubble's going to burst on real estate. It's going to crash that market too globally. And if you want to look into that, just look at a Chinese developer called Evergrande. This is all out there, guys. This company is officially in default now, and it owes 300 billion in bonds. And we know what those are now, don't we? That one company connects to everything globally. Banks, hedge funds, like BlackRock and Vanguard, they own everything, and there's more besides. It's a big domino. But to summarize here, those with the ability to ride it out will purchase that real estate in volume, and those positioned correctly will help those purchasing that real estate. It's that simple. And those positioned will actually make money and get paid very well to do so. Can you see this, guys? Can you see it? As much as this is going to be horrible for a lot of people that aren't prepared, it doesn't have to be horrible for you watching this right now. You are now one of a very tiny minority who understand what is really going on in the world. Prepare yourselves, because you have a huge opportunity right now. And fortune, after all, it favours the brave. So be brave. Go attack it. Don't be a victim of what's to come. Make sure that you benefit and you profit from it. And if you want to book a call, chat more about this, chat more about the program that we have, and how we can help position you to ride out this coming wave, or this coming storm, I should say, there is a link in the description of this video. Please click it, book a call. I look forward to speaking to every one of you. And the final piece is, I know I've made some very big claims. I know it's kind of controversial, but guys, I've spent years looking into this stuff. I know it inside out now. I've got a lot of experience with dealing with it. And if you want to know more about it, I mentioned that the trusts are at play. Everything is a trust in this system. That's the stuff that really blows your mind. I know it's got nothing to do with loan brokering. So if you want to know about it, let me know. I'll do a video. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you all. Bye-bye.